How do you, how does one continue to talk about this? I mean, now this afternoon, word came out of Washington that Trump is planning to pull all U.S. troops out of Syria. In a message on Twitter, not with consultation with his diplomatic staff, not with consultation with his military staff, his generals, his people who understand things that Trump can't even spell. No, no, no. He used fucking Twitter to say that the United States, quote, has defeated ISIS in Syria. My only reason for being there during the Trump presidency. Now, that tweet came shortly after news organizations reported that the Trump administration had decided yesterday to abruptly remove the entire U.S. force of more than 2,000 troops from Syria. That's going to result in, first of all, it will turn that part of the country over to Russia. I'm sure that, and Iran, which I don't care if you think that's a good or bad idea. But Trump is giving the Russians that whole area. Maybe that Syria, Iran, Iraq, he's giving it to Syria. I'm sorry, to the Russians. Maybe that's what they talk about when they get together. Vladimir saying, Russia, what we need is, Donnie, we want this part. You give to us, I give you your fucking building in Moscow, okay? And Trump's sitting there like a little puppy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. God damn. And in a statement, that crazy bitch who is the Miss Trunchbull, that psycho fucking Christian who is the press secretary, yeah, I'm going to call her a bitch, you bet. Anybody that stands there and lies the way she does every fucking day and uses that belligerent Christian attitude of hers to try to intimidate people and hurt people and say shit she knows isn't true, yeah, that's a bitch in my vocabulary. So the bitch stands there today and said the United States had defeated the Islamic State's, quote, territorial caliphate. The fuck does that mean? She said, quote, we have started returning U.S. troops home as we transition to the next phase of this campaign. The United States and our allies stand ready to re-engage at all levels to defend American interests whenever necessary. What the fuck does that mean? It means nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, this decision made by the most ignorant savage ever to occupy the Oval Office signals a halt to extended American ground campaign and destroys plans across the U.S. government articulated by senior officials as early as this week for an ongoing mission to stabilize areas once controlled by ISIS. Trump is giving it back to them. Of all the slaughter and the beheadings and the murder and the viciousness and the killing, Trump is saying, fuck it, I'm bored. I'm bored. I got to focus on the wall. We're getting out. I'm going to try to get through this without totally losing my shit. The Post puts it this way. This sudden move is the latest twist in a years-long effort by two administrations to deliver a lasting defeat of the militants in Syria and end that country's punishing 7-year-long war. The conflict has made Syria a cauldron for terrorist threats and set the stage for a perilous proxy battle that has included forces backed by the United States, Turkey, Iran, and Russia. Moscow's military support, which began in 2015, has been crucial in helping Syrian President Bashar al-Assad turn the war in his favor. The decision also delivers unexpectedly on Trump's repeated threat to pull troops out of Syria. Trump, since before taking office, has promised to conclude the campaign against ISIS and questioned the value of costly and dangerous military missions overseas. But U.S. troops working alongside Syrian partner forces have struggled to eradicate remaining pockets of militants in central Syria. A rapid American withdrawal could allow the militants to regain strength. Nicholas Heraus of the Center for a New American Security said, quote, "The decision, even before ISIS is defeated on the battlefield, is tempting a massive resurgence of ISIS by the end of this year." And Defense Secretary Jim Mattis has also suggested that a precipitous withdrawal would enable militants to make a comeback as they did in Iraq before ISIS rise in 2014. Mattis told reporters in September, quote, "Getting rid of the caliphate doesn't mean you then blindly say, okay, we got rid of it, march out, and then wonder why the caliphate comes back." Now, once again, I find myself in a position that causes me to feel like I'm being twisted like a pretzel. I have said so many times over the course of my little radio career that the United States has no business being militarily involved in all the affairs of all these different countries all over the world. That our stance, in my opinion, should be one of helping countries by showing them what a real functioning democratic state looks like. How a respect for the rule of law, an independent judiciary, an independent press, a leadership that has the interests of the people as its core, that all of that taken together should be the stance of the United States. And then other countries who are dealing with all the shit they're dealing with can take a look at what's going on here and say, it would be nice for us to be like them. I would love to know that when I am hauled into court by the government that I have a chance to come out alive. I'd like to know that when I read a newspaper, I'm reading news and not government propaganda. But doing it that way takes time and effort and cooperation. And you know what it takes? Most importantly, it takes leadership in this country that is leadership in this country. Not some little tin pot dictatorial fuck named Donald Trump. Not some war criminal named George W. Bush. Not some sneaky little son of a bitch named George Herbert Walker Bush. The withdrawal that Trump is talking about leaves major questions for the alliance of U.S.-backed Kurdish and Arab militias known as the Syrian Democratic Force, or SDF, which has provided key aid for U.S. forces in a fight against the Islamic State. What Trump is saying is we're going to pull out and you people will have to fend for yourself. Now, we've done this before. We've done it many times over the course of U.S. interventionism all around the world. We go into a country, we pick a faction, a governing faction, a military faction, and we back it and we support it until we realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe we picked the wrong faction. And by that time, this is classic of what happened in Iraq. By the time we realize, ooh, we fucked up. We did this in Vietnam too. We have all sorts of nationals from that country who have swung over to support the United States, knowing full well that if the United States pulls out, their chances of not facing a hanging or a firing squad are not very good. But we pull out anyway. You remember the pictures. You may not be old enough to have seen them live. I did. The pictures of people hanging on the struts of helicopters as they're lifting off the U.S. Embassy in downtown Saigon. Those were Vietnamese nationals who had helped the U.S., for good or for bad, and it was all bad, had helped the U.S. And now the United States saying, fuck it, we're bugging out. Adios, goodbye, thanks for all the fish. I hope some of you people survive, but I know most of you won't. We've done that so many times. And now Trump is talking about doing it in the Syria, Iran, Iraq, ISIS, crazy shit that came as a result of George W. Bush's war crimes beginning in 2003. When Bush II pulled his shock and all bullshit on Iraq and totally destroyed the country, and then sent his pro-councils into Iraq to dissolve the military so that Iraq had no protection against anything, that gave rise to ISIS, to a more militant Iran, and to a more aggressive Russia. Thank you, George W. Bush. You picture-painting fucker, you. Thank you very much. This is what happens. And then we had 8 years of Obama, who didn't know whether to piss his pants or just walk away. Well, let me increase the troops. No, let me pull them back. No, let me add some. No, let me... Meantime, Afghanistan, a war we've been in for, 18 years? That's still festering. But out of the Middle East, all of a sudden arises the Islamic State, ISIS. A stateless group of people who say, you know what? Fuck these Christians. We are militant Muslims. We're going to take over. And the rest, as they say, is bloody history. So here we are. After all the beheadings, after all the killings, after all the bombing, here we are. We have Trump saying we're bugging out. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored,
fun and frivolity.